Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, the further adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for the further adventures of Indiana Jones.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Marvel Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones? Jones? Dr. Jones? The eminent archaeologist?
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Ouch. Now, what shall we talk about?
IndyCast listeners, further fans, once again it is time to have your passport stamped and head out for adventure, fortune, and glory. Welcome to the further adventures of Indiana Jones. I'm Joe Stuber. He's Keith Voss. Keith, home stretch of further adventures.
That we are. Only 7 more issues, Joe, remain before the end of Indy's original Marvel run. And while the series might be coming to a close, that's not stopping the creators from bringing a ton of new characters into the life of Indiana Jones. But by the way, Joe, you and the listeners are going to need a box of tissues because we're heading into the Tower of Tears.
Oh, Tower of Tears. Yes. The strange thing is you're getting near the end of this run, but it's like, you know, obviously folks at Marvel hoped it would go on forever. So they started bringing all these new characters in. So really, things are just amping up.
Yeah.
So we know from history that we've only got a few more issues left, but a lot of new characters are being introduced into the world of Indiana Jones. So the expanded universe is expanding even more as we're talking.
And characters like we mentioned before on the show that were going to be brought back, like Willie and Lao She. They had plans for all these characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure if the comic was still running after Last Crusade was released, they would have brought in some of those characters as well.
Yep, that's true.
Can you imagine seeing Henry Sr. in the further adventures of Indiana Jones? That would have been great.
And if you look at some of the letters pages too, they talked about maybe possibly going back and doing some prequels. So we would possibly have seen Abner and Belloc and all this. So yeah, what could have been?
The possibilities are endless.
But we do have some very cool characters. You mentioned those creators were amping things up. Let's talk about those talented folks. Keith, hit us with the creator rundown.
You got it. We're talking today about the further adventures of Indiana Jones, issue number 28, Tower of Tears. Cover date of April 1985 with a fantastic cover by Keith Pollard. Script by Linda Grant. Pencils, Steve Ditko. Inks, Danny Bulanati. Colors, Robbie Carosella. And letters by Diana Albers.
This is one of those one-shot adventures that we get into with further adventures. But really, when you think about it, it's really a prologue for the 3-part miniseries that's going to cap off Indy's Marvel run. So we get through this. Right. Just know as you're reading this, it kind of ends abruptly, and you're like, whoa, what happened there? What's going on?
But it doesn't.
No, it actually sets things up nicely. It actually drops a few plot points for what we got, a 3-part miniseries that comes at the end. But yeah, the cover, Keith Pollard, he jumped on board last issue. He finishes out the run. I love these covers where you've got a scene straight out of the adventure itself.
It's fantastic. I love this cover. Action-packed. I got to say, this is the first ever Further Adventures comic I ever owned. I bought it in a multi-pack with, ROM, Space Knight, or Planet Terry, or, whatever.
Like those Whitman sampler packs you get at the 5 and dime.
Got it at the drugstore, and this caught my eye, and I said, an Indiana Jones comic book, cool. And I picked this up and absolutely loved it. Hey, I noticed it then, and I noticed it now. The only thing that stands out about this cover for me is Indy's hat, that little striped band around it.
I noticed it.
I don't know where that came
rope,
from.
Or it looks like what are the on curtains? We put the little rope around the curtain.
Exactly.
It's the only drawback of a very cool cover.
Exactly, yeah.
But a great use of the whip. This actually takes place in the book. I mean, they're falling, and
This is straight out of the comic.
Yeah, we don't know who the dude is yet, but he's falling. He's in trouble in Indy. What a great use of the whip.
Yeah, and look at the look on his face. He's just utterly terrified. I mean, so this makes you want to pick up the book and just see what is going to happen here. I mean, is he going to hold on to the whip? Is he going to fall? Let's find out.
We'll find out. He's doing a lot of falling and screaming, and somebody else is doing some screaming. Oh, some new Further Adventures listeners we know from our Facebook page. So if you're just joining us on this segment, you know we're going to spoil the entire comic book. So if you haven't read it yet, I don't even know what the statute of limitations is on spoilers, but a 30-something-year-old comic book, you should have read it by now. But if you haven't
read it yet, you belong in the Tower of Tears. You should be crying.
You don't belong in the cocktail party in Connecticut, which is where we start this issue with a very cool splash page by Steve Ditko. Yeah, we got a cocktail party in Connecticut. I think I see Mitch in the background.
Is that Mitch?
I think so.
I think so too.
I think he's
there.
Mitch. We've got the faculty and administration of Marshall College here. Marcus is certainly getting an earful from one of our new characters that we mentioned, Bradley Tavistock.
Yes, and Bradley Tavistock is an interesting character. He's a member of the Board of Trustees for the Connecticut branch of the National Museum, located, of course, at Marshall College. It's not entirely clear whether the Board of Trustees is the one for Marshall College. It's not really kind of stated in the book, or for the National Museum as a whole, or it's just the Marshall College branch, or even like multiple jobs.
Yeah, we kind of looked on the Indy Wiki, just to get some more background on him. Just as we're going through he's another one of these regular characters that's being brought in that we talked about earlier. So it's kind of, depending on the next few issues, there are different references that are made. So he's either working for the museum or he's working for the college. I'm just going to assume he's working for the college because I don't think he kind of pushes Marcus around a little bit. He kind of pushes Indy around a little bit. And you think, why would Indy care if it was just the museum? But he kind of seems to be able to control Indy a little bit, and that would be more the college, I would think.
He seems like a little bit of a blowhard as well. He mentions you're living in the dark ages, Marcus. This is the 30s. Even Jones would agree. He just seems like a little bit of a blowhard. So
but he's always threatening Indy's job, as we'll see. And it's like, what Indy kind of works, as a subcontractor or a freelancer for the museum, but his regular gig is at the college. So it's like, why would he care so much about the museum? That's why I'm thinking Tavistock is more for the college.
He's some type of investor, maybe. Maybe he invests into Indy's adventures, but I don't know. They have a little bit of a discussion later about Indy taking some time off. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a mystery at this point.
But yeah, the cocktail party is interrupted by Alec Sutherland, another new character. He's just arrived from Scotland. He's an archaeology student. Looks a lot like Peter Parker.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Do we kind of get a little Steve Ditko revisiting Spider-Man here?
I think so. I mean, a little bit of a cross between Matt Murdock and Peter Parker.
Yeah,
we got Matt Murdock's red hair, and we got Peter Parker's face and body.
Yeah, some of those expressions. So it's kind of cool to see Ditko maybe revisiting some of his older characters a little bit. But yeah, that was kind of cool. But yeah, Alec, as we mentioned, an archaeology student, and one of his professors was Arthur Hecht, who was also one of Indy's first professors. And it's kind of a nice, we get some more background here that he once told Indy that archaeology was more than pots and bones. So there's, obviously a relationship there. It reminded me a little bit of Mutt and Oxley. It's almost like a precursor to that.
I thought the same exact thing. And, he shows up looking for Dr. Jones, looking for his help. So, yeah, it's very similar in that sense to Crystal Skull. And, I mean, yeah, you mentioned that Hecht mentions archaeology is more than pots and bones, so you get a sense of, Hecht was maybe also a little bit of an adventurer of his own, and maybe he taught Indy a little bit more than just archaeology. He taught him how to maybe survive in certain situations. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. Again, we've talked about this many times before. These characters, you can go back and tell so many stories with each of these characters, these untold stories. Hopefully one day they will be brought to light. But Professor Hecht unfortunately passed away recently, and with his dying breath, he wanted Indy to have his private expedition journal carry on his work of searching for the mysterious Tower of Tears.
So obviously he was an adventurer, So, he's going out and having these adventures. So it's easy to see where Indy gets this background, whether it's from Abner, whether it's from Professor Hecht. So all these people had an influence on Indy's life. So yeah,
exactly.
And as it turns out, you get some more backstory here on Tavistock. He used his influence with the Board of Trustees to convince them that Hecht was crazy. He had all these theories about the Tower of Tears and going on this adventure, and Tavistock didn't want to finance it. So he eventually, sort of discredited him and had him, drummed out of the college. So Hecht had to teach in Scotland, which is where he hooked up with Alec.
That's right. Now, Indy meets up with Alec, our young, what looks to be future sidekick for Dr. Jones, and he takes the assignment, much to the chagrin of Tavistock, and takes this journal. this private expedition journal, looks through it, and they start talking about this Tower of Tears, which is quite interesting. Indy says in Iran, he chanced upon a mysterious Tower of Tears, one of 7 towers that are scattered across the earth, and they're harboring sorcerers who seek to chant the world to destruction. So there's our MacGuffin right there. I mean, this is a pretty big thing, and it definitely piques Indy's interest. But
Tavistock's not making any friends.
Yeah, he thinks it's sheer lunacy.
Well, that's why he drummed Hecht out in the first place, and then obviously he starts saying about these things. He's laughing about Hecht, and then that sets Alec off. So Alec tries to take Tavistock out, and Indy's
very
just
much
like, look,
Mutt.
let me,
much like Mutt.
Exactly, hot-headed temper.
Yep.
And it's funny you kind of see those seeds planted because Indy's like, hold off, I'm going to go do this adventure. I'll figure it out. I'll take care of it. Kind of like what he does in Crystal Skull.
Yeah, exactly. So much to the chagrin of Tavistock, Indy's going to take the assignment. Of course he will, right? And
he's got a week coming on. He's got some vacation time coming. And that's why I say where Tavistock kind of like is in control of Indy's schedule and how he's teaching. So that's why I think he's kind of like more for the college. But Indy's like, hey, I got time off. How I spend my vacation is how I spend my vacation. So he takes off to the Middle East. Exactly.
But I wonder if Tavistock at this point is like, you take off a lot. I mean, you have. You take off a lot of time here, Dr. Jones.
Especially in 1936.
It's let's be honest. Like, how many adventures has Indy been on at this point? And what about his teaching schedule? I mean, this has come up before. Yeah. Like, he just kind of disappears. Like, he takes time off. But I mean, somebody's got to notice this at some point. I mean, Marcus is probably very lenient, but at some point,
it's kind of nice to see this even being addressed.
Yes,
even though we're in a tight time frame of 1936, it would have been nice to spread that out over a couple of years. But it's nice to see that the writer, is addressing this issue that we've always kind of thought about since Raiders.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Indy does take the assignment. He heads to Yezd, Y-E-Z-D. I think that might be a mistake. I think it should be Yazd, Y-A-Z-D, because Yazd, Y-A-Z-D, is the capital of Yazd province, Iran. I didn't see Yezd, so I think that might have just been a problem with the lettering or something like that. But anyway, and in Yazd province, there is a Tower of Silence. Mm-hmm. No Tower of Tears, though. That's in Amsterdam. So.
I've actually been to that.
The Tower of Tears?
The Tower of Tears in Amsterdam. I've been to Amsterdam a couple of times, and it's like a pub. No sorcerers. I think I was destruction. I think at some point I did cry a few times after 5 or 6 beers.
Crying your beers.
That's a whole other story. Anyway, Amsterdam. There is a Tower of Tears there. I've been there. Quite interesting. No sorcerers, but
Indy will not be tipping back a few brews. He's heading to the Middle East.
Unfortunately,
right. So, but in his flight to the Middle East, it's interesting. Somebody's tagging along. He was going to go this alone, which is how we like Indiana Jones. We don't want a whole entourage following him out. But at least he has one person tagging along. Alex kind of hides out in the plane. And really cool sequence here where Indy takes off out of the plane. They're over the drop zone. Now we're getting into our cover where he jumps out, and then Alec jumps out as well. But Alec runs into a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, his parachute doesn't open, and Indy is like, stretch, give me your hand. And Alec is just absolutely horrified. I think most of us would be in that situation. And this, again, like you said, this is where our cover comes in. Indy uses his trusty whip and snags it around Alec, and it slows Alec down. But I mean, Alec is traveling pretty quickly. His body is hitting terminal velocity at this point, so he's dragging Indy down really fast with him. But luckily, they don't get crushed on the ground below. And Indy winds up saving his life.
Too.
Yeah. They definitely lucked out there. Lucked out.
It's Indiana Jones. He's always going to get away with it.
Exactly. So. Great use of the whip.
Great use of the whip. Great action sequence we have here. Really, really fantastic art. The only problem I have with the art so far is just even in the coloring. Though you go back a few pages, Tavistock's like bright blue hair. I just thought that was a little freaky, but
and it's even more pronounced in the omnibuses where I mean the coloring is kind of redundant. Yeah. He has blue hair. He has Superman blue hair.
Yeah, that's what it is in the original book. So, but the art itself by Ditko really looks good here. They're going off, and Indy's like, you're not tagging along with me, but Indy's a softie, and he's like, yeah, come on, you can tag along with me after all. So they try to go off on this journey to find the Tower of Tears. They're confronted by a caravan of Hillsmen they're trying to get horses, obviously, and so they're, hey, we'll barter for these horses. But in this area, horses are priceless. But the good thing is they're allowed to tag along. They're allowed to ride along in the wagon with them, and they'll kind of go. And so it's like, hey, well, it's not really our destination. We really want to go to the Tower of Tears.
Yeah, when they find that out, that's
the Susquehanna Hat Company. Slowly I turn.
Inch by inch. Exactly.
Don't mention the Tower of Tears in this area.
No, you don't want to do that. And Indy's like, look, let me explain. And they're not having it. The head caravan chief, I guess, they just throw these ropes around their necks, and they just want to take them for a ride. Indy's had enough of that last issue, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and it's just at least he figures a way to get out of it there. Yeah, and it's just like this chief just goes nuts. He's like, this is where the evil men are, and men like you who want to go. So obviously something bad is happening there. It's kind of like a Temple of Doom-ish thing, when you've got the village there, and something bad is happening at the Temple of Doom. Same here. So this Tower of Tears is bad news, and they think that Indy and Alec are part of all this. So, yeah, ropes around the neck. They're dragging him around.
Found out something interesting about Indy, though. We found out that he actually hates neckties.
Yeah, there you go. Although he wears one in Last Crusade, but I think that was more just because he wanted to impress his dad.
I think so. I think that's the big mystery about why he wore a necktie in Last Crusade. Wanted to impress the old man. Yeah. But Indy's more of a bow tie guy, as we know.
Yeah. And he certainly doesn't like ropes around his neck either. So he kind of like works his way out. I guess he probably learned that from the last adventure he was on, and gets the rope around the other guy, the attacker's neck. Really good horses here by Ditko as well. Ditko can really draw horses, and a nice action sequence there. Kind of gets the tables turned on his attacker, and then turns around and just shoots the rope off of Alec's neck.
Yeah,
where did he learn that?
Takes a lesson from our good friend Elizabeth Cody from last issue. I mean, great scene here. Yeah. And that panel of Indy shooting the rope. I mean, you definitely get it looks a lot like Harrison there, and you get a great reaction shot of Alec on the ground. It's just the art. I'm telling you again. I repeated it last episode. I will repeat it again this episode. I do not see what the problem is with Ditko's art. No. It is fantastic.
Yeah, it really captures Harrison Ford perfectly. And again, these action sequences, the bucking broncos and the hillsmen, this caravan of hillsmen, like pulling all these bow and arrows. And they just start flinging these arrows. So again, sort of another Temple of Doom reference where Indy's dodging arrows again, and he's kind of cornered by this one, and there's no way out for Indy. Except now Alec gets to save Indy's life. So he comes around, and this horse just like trounces him,
Good thing he allowed Alec to come along. I mean, that's so. I mean, Indy's a smart guy. He knows, you know what? All right, maybe he's not the most experienced guy, but Indy saw something in him. He saw that there was use, and that's another really smart side of Indy. He recognizes talent. He recognizes when maybe somebody can really truly help him out in an adventure.
Well, it's kind of like with Mutt. I mean, we see that in Crystal Skull, where he realizes Mutt's got some insight into these things, and he's got some skills.
That's
and it turns out that it was beneficial to him on the adventure. So yeah.
And look at that. They're bringing that up in an issue of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Like 20 years more than that.
Yeah. Decades ahead of it,
Before Crystal Skull, before they put it in a movie, it was here in the pages of this Marvel comic.
Yeah, very cool. So Indy jumps on board. Indy jumps on the horse with Alec. They start taking off. Interesting sequence here because this is something that played out earlier on in Further Adventures. Because remember back in, was it issue 17? The Search for Abner? We had Indy and Marion kind of escaping individuals on horseback. I don't think it was in the actual issue, but it was certainly on the cover where they face this canyon, and Indy's kind of like, "You're jumping over this? Are you crazy?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going over." So, but it's kind of like, well, Indy and Marion did this. Why would he have a problem if Alec's doing it?
Yeah, I guess maybe just because he's not actually in control.
Yeah. That was
what I mean?
Right.
I think that's what it is. I think Marion and Indy were on their own horses back in issue 17. I remember that's the cover where the perspective was slightly off and it just looked a little weird. The horses jumping over.
Much better here though. Ditko gets it right.
Much better here.
Yeah, Ditko gets it right here. And that was Marvel's response too, because one of the readers of the Lost Ark letters. It's in issue 32, so if you flip over to there, one of the readers had asked that question. He said he was disappointed when Indy called Alec crazy when they jumped the horse across the cliff. I thought that Indy would have done the same thing without hesitation. And Marvel's answer, it says, if Indy had been in control of the horses, he would have done exactly what Alec did, but he didn't know that Alec had the skill to pull off a stunt like that. Indy's willing to risk his own life, but doesn't like somebody else doing it for him.
Hey, there you go. Hey, was that letter from me? I don't know.
Let's see. By a young K. Voss.
Oh, my goodness. Hey. Oh, man, I wish I could have written into Readers of the Lost Ark back in the day. How cool would that have been?
You'd have been a butt arc.
Oh, man, that would have been great. But unfortunately, I never ever thought my letter would have gotten printed if I would have sent it in. But you never know.
Never know. But now we can look at those now. So they make the leap. Alec wasn't so crazy, and apparently he's a lot like Indiana Jones.
He's on the steeplechase team. He's on the university steeplechase team.
How fortunate! Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, I mean.
Exactly.
You want to have somebody with you around horses. I guess having a steeplechase guy with you is that's
he's got
pretty
some
helpful.
Mad skills, Hey, Mudhead fencing. Alec has the steeplechase. These weird skills that they learn in college come into play on these Indiana Jones adventures. So very cool.
What do you think of Alec overall so far?
I like him. I mean, he's got the look of Peter Parker. He's got the passion of Indiana Jones, and he's got some mad skills. So pretty good sidekick.
Pretty good sidekick so far, I got to say. I'm also on board with Alec at this point.
I think it would have made a really cool adventure. And you see that sort of paternal instinct that Indiana Jones has.
Exactly.
He kind of takes a look at, takes him under his wing. So so they set up camp. Another interesting series here. We get to find out what provisions Indiana Jones likes to bring along on these adventures.
Yeah, and it's not yogurt.
Not yogurt. No, he likes beef jerky.
He likes beef jerky, which
He's
is
messing with Sasquatch. Got some beef jerky on him. So,
and we also get another little a funny little part of Indy's personality that we've seen in the movies where he's talking to Willie in the jungle. That's why it's the jungle, sweetheart. Oh, those are giant vampire bats, whatever. And he kind of makes a joke to Alec here. He's like, we don't have much to worry about. They're still looking for us. Those hillsmen, they'd be here by now. All we have to worry about is the flash flooding. And Alec is
with
like
the hat over his eyes, like he's getting some. Yeah, he's getting some shut eye.
It's classic Indy.
Yeah,
it's classic Indy right there. So again, the writers, the
just kind
artists,
of stringing the newbies along, having a little fun with the newbies here.
I mean, and the creative team is just still nailing every single aspect of the Indiana Jones character. At this
so
point.
Far solid. So far solid.
It's just a so far I gotta say I'm really loving this issue.
Yep. And he makes a joke about the flash flooding, and then we've got lightning strikes. So now Alec's really freaking out because he thinks there is a storm that's approaching, and Indy was like, "Hey, I was just goofing about And Alec is really panicked. But what happens is that lightning reveals the location of the Tower of Tears.
Yeah, they found it.
They found it. They were, right there. So they head up to it, and they're trying to find a way in. So kind of, again, a little bit reminiscent of Crystal Skull, where they're trying to they found what they're looking for. They just have to figure out how to get inside.
Exactly. You figured this out in your cell, didn't you, Professor?
Well, Indy hasn't figured it out yet.
Well,
so he needs a little bit of help.
Professor Hecht, maybe he got locked up and, he figured it out in his cell.
Yeah, maybe they should have looked at the Expedition Journal a little closer.
Exactly. So, Thank you.
Which we mentioned at the end of this issue, too. He's like, hey, I got to look closer at this Expedition Journal. So maybe Indy just didn't have time to look it over. Too busy sleeping on the plane, I guess, putting a fedora down over his eyes or whatever.
Too busy getting chased by hillsmen.
Yes, and jumping over canyons and things on horseback. So but they do find a way in, and it's through the wife of the chieftain, or the wife of the chief.
Exactly.
She's like zombified. She's hypnotized. She pulls up in the wagon and is in a daze trying to go in, and then all of a sudden somebody's screaming behind her saying, "Don't go through there, sister." And so it's a brother-sister. That the brother's trying to save his sister from going into this Tower of Tears, and all of a sudden these rocks come flying out of nowhere, attacking him. He's attacked by these random rocks or whatever.
Exactly.
So at least now we have a way of getting into the Tower of Tears.
Yeah, and it's again another little bit of a Crystal Skull reference here. Not necessarily a reference, but kind of as we read it now, a little bit of a callback. It's Alec sees all this like gold and artifacts and stuff, and Indy's like, forget it. We'll come back for it later. Or, we have more important,
where Mac's kind of distracted by all these things. Yeah, so once they get into the tower, like they just make it in time, and the door kind of slams behind them. Yeah, Alec's like looking out. So he's just like bombarded with archaeological references and trying to find out what Professor Hecht was up to, and Indy's just trying to figure out what's happening with this girl and her brother.
Yeah,
and they find out very quickly.
They stumble upon this like weird ceremony that's going on, and what seems to be one of the sorcerers that was mentioned in Hecht's journal.
How do you do? My name is Merlin. I'm a sorcerer. Yeah? Really? A sorcerer? Hey, come on. Let's see your sauce, please, please.
And the woman bears the means, quote unquote, for his work to come to fruition, destruction within a generation. She's pregnant.
So it would make sense that her brother's like trying to... And now we kind of get a sense, too, of why the Hillsmen were so upset at what's going on here in this tower, because there's obviously some bad stuff that's going on.
There's some type of black magic that they obviously want to stay away from. They don't even want to go near it. But I mean, the thing is, if they know that there's something bad going on there, why wouldn't why wouldn't they gather up a group of people and go and try to take this guy out, or try to end this evil? They just kind of leave it alone and let it kind of go on.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew if it was like an army inside there or one
what
guy
exactly
or something.
Is inside
so they don't know what's going
idea.
on inside there. They just know bad stuff's going on. I would have just moved.
Yeah,
I mean, just leave the area, but
it's like that old Sam Kinison joke. It's like, you can't like grow anything in the desert, so just get out of the desert. It's like just leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So her brother's trying to save her at this point. He pulls a knife and
he's like, I'm not going to let you take her.
Not letting you gonna take her. Our people are not going to die at your hands. But this wizard just grabs the knife and he
grabs it by the blade. And shows that it's just like
it's very strange. So this guy, I mean, either it's parlor tricks or this guy really is quite powerful. And you know what? He starts showing this power a little bit. The sorcerer tosses the poor brother into the flaming pit and then douses him with this powder of dissolution, he calls it. And then we get a classic Indiana Jones moment here where the poor brother just melts into nothing.
I'm melting!
And when he picks him up, he's like he whips him around like a rag doll. So it's just he's freakishly strong. Who's that dude in issue 3? It's like Prospero or something.
Oh, Prospero, yeah.
He's had this freakish strength that was going on. So
maybe Prospero was one of the 7 sorcerers.
Oh, maybe a callback. Yeah, you get these guys that are freakishly strong. So Indy doesn't really know what to make of this, because we know from Raiders, he says, I don't believe in a lot of superstitions. I don't believe in a lot of magic, a lot of superstitious hocus pocus. So he's kind of skeptical about this whole thing. He's like, is this guy doing parlor tricks or what? He's definitely strong. And so Indy's wary about his freakish strength here. Yeah, so Indy jumps out and attacks him. He's going after him no matter what. And Alec...
he drops his gun too. It's an important thing.
He drops his gun, and Alec finds this. He's still looking at some of these artifacts. So he picks up this big metallic cylinder kind of thing. Indy attacks him. Now Indy's getting thrown around like a rag doll, and this dude picks Indy up with one hand and knocks Alec around with the other. So he's just he's hulking out on him.
Yeah.
And as Alec is hit, he drops this cylinder, that whatever it is that he finds, and really sets off a chain of events
here. Yes. So Alec comes in handy again. It's just like Short Round, he comes through and he helps Indy kind of unexpectedly sometimes, but yeah, he drops this thing over this flame which hasn't been extinguished in over 20 years.
Yeah.
And Indy tries to grab one of those powders. Maybe he figures he could use this power of dissolution.
While he's still being choked by this guy. He's still being whipped around like a rag doll again, like the other guy was. Like I mentioned
before, Indy drops his gun, which is quite important. He can't get a shot off to try to shoot the sorcerer. Yeah, Indy unfortunately grabbed the wrong powder. The sorcerer goes for Indy's gun, but doesn't notice that the flames were kept burning because of a natural gas well. Really?
Yeah, and what's with this dude's all these powder packs that he had? It's like the bat belt. Is he grabbing the bat anti-shark repellent spray? And
he's
got all these different things. It's none of them are marked either. So how does he know what's in what bag? But Yeah, Indy grabs the apparently. He apparently grabs like the dazed and confused powder.
It's you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me a little bit of the Grail Knight.
Yeah,
he's been in this place. Area. He's been in this tower for who knows how
Forever.
long. I mean, we'd say minimum, let's say 20 years, because he says though that flame hasn't been extinguished in 20 years.
Right.
So let's say 20 years. How's he surviving in here? You know what I mean? He must have some type of.
Well, I guess he's got like
power.
Or hypnotizes people to bring him food or something. You know, it's like maybe he gets these like food deliveries in the middle of the night. You know, like pizza runs or something. Yeah, it's just like, you will bring me pizza. And like they pull up and it's like, here's the way in. Here's the tip. Leave it at the door. I don't know. Yeah, these guys have their little hideouts up there, but whatever. But you know, apparently with this flame being extinguished, it's like, okay, now all bets are off. Now he's really mad.
He's angry now. Yeah, exactly.
So he grabs Indy's gun, which you mentioned that Indy had dropped before. Now he's got the drop on Indy, and Indy's like trying to tell him, look, no, can't you smell what's going on? That's natural gas that's coming up through there.
The sorcerer's been eating a lot of beans.
Well, but okay, here's the other thing too. We know that natural gas has a smell because they add that to it.
Yes.
Because you can't. It's odorless.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But Indy says, "Can't you smell it?"
Okay, so we talked about the Ukraine Power Company in the last issue. So is this the Middle Eastern natural gas company that's adding the smell?
Imagine the bills this guy must be getting. Jeez.
20 years left the flame on.
Left the flame on the whole time. Oh,
natural gas is odorless.
You think he cooks with the eternal flame?
Look. No, he's not cooking. He's got pizza drop-offs.
That's right. But
anyway, so one glaring error in the thing here. So Indy's sensing something. So like, I don't know. Indy knows that there's natural gas that's coming up through there, and the guy's all confused. He's like, your words are clouding my mind. I haven't eaten pizza in days. I'm gonna kill you. So, but he's got Indy's gun, and here's where the chain of events kind of culminates. He fires off a shot. Well, the whole place is filled with natural gas, and as is wont to happen in the further adventures as we
crack
boom. But this one, it's like, man, you'd think everybody would have been dead there.
And he's like, no,
the only one that right.
I only get blown up part-time.
That's the exact shot. That's the exact angle from Crystal Skull.
It's
where he's standing. He's like brushing himself off. He's fine. The dude was thrown free of the explosion. The woman's apparently fine. Freakishly strong dude up in the tower. He's fine. Alec's fine. What happened with the explosion? Did everybody just... I don't know what happened there. But they're all like thrown from the tower, which is like incredibly high.
Indy wasn't, though. Indy was still up there.
Yeah. The only one that's dead is the poor brother who was just trying to save his sister in the beginning.
Yeah, and anyway. I mean, that's what a way to go, huh?
Yeah, but everybody's alive. So, and Alec wants to find out what happened with Hecht. Like, what was he trying to find? What's up with these 7 towers and everything? And so, like, the guy sitting there, he can barely breathe on the ground. And he's like, oh, these were all just stories. These were all just fables that were made up to scare kids.
Lies. Oh, lies!
Or is it?
Well, but he says there's only one. So he's like, well, what happened with Hecht, and what was he trying to find, and where are the 7 towers? And he's like, oh, it's
Hecht
all...
He's a master of lies, which is very interesting.
And, yeah, so that's another plot thread that's weaved into here. And he says there's only one. Only one tower? I mean, what?
Only one sorcerer, only one... Yeah, I mean, we don't know at this point.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned at the top of the show, it is a prologue. There are more stories to be told.
Yeah, because the adventure just ends, so you're kind of like, whoa, what happened? We didn't learn anything.
It's interesting that the Hillsmen show up again, but Indy and Alec, they're saved by the chief's wife as they rescued her and, as we mentioned before, her unborn child, which was going to be used to continue this sorcerer's work, to bring, evil and destruction to this next generation.
That's the sinister stuff that's going on. Yeah, it's like they were like trying to get again, another Temple of Doom kind of reference. They were trying to get the children, at least in Temple of Doom they're like putting in the work, but here it was like the child is going to do my bidding, and so a lot of sinister stuff. So we can see why the Hillsmen were so upset when they thought Indy and Alec were tied in with them. But now they're like, oh, okay, so you saved my wife and my unborn child. Fine, here's some horses, and that gets them back to Connecticut. So it's like, the adventure doesn't end here. It's just a prologue for what we have. But what we do have now is Tavistock, who's like, okay, I funded all this. Now tell me what.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me what came out of this.
What is the deal with the towers?
What is the deal? And basically, it was nothing. What could Indy say? He's like, what? I couldn't.
Mass hypnosis. There's no evidence of
Nope.
7 towers. There's barely evidence of 1 tower.
I can't credit or discredit Heck's work. We have no idea what was found. So yeah, it just kind of ends, and we're a little frustrated. And nobody's as frustrated as Alec because, he's trying to prove that his mentor wasn't crazy, that he was onto something. And so he's like, Indy, why did you tell him this? And Indy's like, look, we are archaeologists. We have to find the truth. We have to uncover the truth.
Yeah, but isn't archaeology the search for fact, not truth, as he says in Last Crusade? Maybe it's something he learns down the line.
Again, that's possibly something that he learned, yeah.
It's more about fact than truth. I mean, because, again, Indy has only the evidence that he has seen so far, and what's in Heck's journal.
Right.
So that's fact, is what's in the journal. But Indy's looking for the truth of what happened, which, I mean, again, we'll see in those next couple of issues down the line, because it does get interesting. It definitely does get interesting.
Yeah, we're building toward a 3-part miniseries to cap off the Further Adventures run. So, all these seeds are being planted now. So, especially for this particular issue, I like the adventure. It's just that if you didn't know a lot of other stuff was coming down the pike, you might be disappointed with it because it's like, really? That's it? They didn't learn anything? And who's the guy? And what was the tower? And why is there one? And what happened to Heck? And what about Scarecrow's brain? It's like, but we know something bigger is coming down the pike with the miniseries. So overall, I think it's a good prologue, and I like that that new characters were introduced that give a little bit of drama to Indy's life, especially Tavistock, who's kind of a good foil.
And I also really, like I said before, I really like Alec, and it looks like he's going to be Indy's new student. It looks like he'll be tagging along on other adventures with Indy, and
he's transferring
I think that's
from
cool.
Scotland. Yeah, he's transferring from Scotland.
I think that's cool.
I think he kind of sees Indy as another Heck, and and that was Indy's mentor as well too. So
exactly, and I think
cool.
Indy sees a little bit of a protege in Alec as well.
Yep, and again, a lot of these things we see played out in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So. Really cool tie-ins, decades apart, but we see the Indy universe all tying together. Next time, we've got issue 29. Keith, he was there in Raiders. He was there in issue number 24. And once again, Indy heads to San Francisco in Shot by Both Sides.
Looking forward to it.
Well, hey, before we wrap things up for today, we want to talk about our big giveaway. It's the home stretch here on Further Adventures. Now there are only 6 issues left, Keith.
Oh, man.
We are winding down. So last episode we mentioned our biggest Further Adventures giveaway yet. This is going to run throughout the end of the run here until we review issue number 34. So you've got plenty of time to get your giveaway entries in. Let's talk about first and second place. Set 1, Keith, what do they got?
You're going to be getting the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones issue number 1 and issue number 2, which were the Icons of Ikemonen. You'll get both parts of that fantastic story, the fantastic John Byrne story. You'll be getting issue number 15 signed by artist Herb Trimpe. You'll be getting issue number 25 signed by artist Michael Golden. That's a whole lot of Indiana Jones and a whole lot of Marvel Comics for you guys.
Yeah,
but you got a little bit of work to do, and we also have another prize, a second prize. Joe, what are they going to get?
They will get issue number 23, which is signed by Michael Golden, and Master of Kung Fu issue number 121, which includes the rare Indy in His Office splash page by John Byrne. That's a very cool book to have. So if you don't already have it, we're giving it away for free. Now, Keith, what do they have to do in order to get one of these great sets?
Well, Joe. They are going to have to recreate, bring to life, if you will, one of the covers of the original run of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Now, you guys can do whatever you want here. You can cosplay, diorama, action figures, Lego, Play-Doh, Photoshop. Use a comic cover template. Use the Further Adventures font. Give us the Marvel Indy. Give us the issue number. Give us everything. Get
34
creative.
There's 34. One of the 34 issues.
If you guys don't have all these issues too to choose. To choose a cover to bring to life, check out the Indie Wiki. You'll find all the covers there. Google it. It's all there, guys. But keep in mind, we didn't mention this on the last show, so we figure we'd mention it this time. We only accept one entry per person. In the case of multiple entries, only the first one that we have received will be eligible.
That's right.
And the entries must be submitted to thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. Please do not post them on our Facebook page. We kind of want to reveal all of these at once. Yeah. So
don't send them to us individually at our email addresses. Don't send them, don't send them to, the only entries that are going to be eligible are at thefurtheradventures@gmail.com.
They one go entry, anywhere else.
Yep, they can't count. And as Keith mentioned, one entry per person. So we want to keep this as simple as possible. One email address, one entry per person. If anything outside of that, they're not going to be eligible. So make sure you do that. And we're going to determine the top 2 entries, and those individuals will get the books. It's as simple as that. We're going to announce the first and second place covers, those entries which win the first or second place giveaways. We're going to mention that at the end of our review of issue 34. So you've got some time here to get these entries in. Be as creative as you want.
And most of all, guys, have fun with it. Yeah. We're really looking forward to seeing what you guys can pull off and how creative you guys can get.
Like, lose the hat and like so many covers, like Indy's hats flying off. Like, can you do that? That'd be cool
exactly.
To see that.
Can you pull off Dragon by the Tail? We can't wait to see what you guys
can do. Some cool stuff.
So speaking of the mailbox, Joe, what do you say we check out ours?
Mister, get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now.
Oh, dear me. I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna.
Our first email comes in from Anthony Chandler. He writes, I'm sure you heard about Dark Horse ending with Lucas. Will Dark Horse pull all previous indie comics from comic stores and online sites since they're under Lucas licensing also? There's still a lot I haven't purchased, and I don't know if I would get them all before the end of the year. Thanks. Well, thanks for writing in, Anthony. You know what? If you check out darkhorse.com, their website, they've got a frequently asked questions page. There's also customer support line. If who posts phone numbers anymore, but there's one on there. It's very cool. But yeah, we have no idea what they're planning on doing. It looks like from their website they had mentioned that there's an outside distributor selling some of their books, so they might have to go through another distributor. But those products are going to be out there for a while. There's a ton of Dark Horse stuff out there, so. Who knows how this is going to affect anything, but I'm sure the people at Dark Horse should be able to give you a pretty clear answer on that.
And if you do hear anything, Anthony, please feel free to share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. Our next email comes in from Martin Garung via our Facebook page, and Martin writes, Hey, Joe and Keith, it's me again. I've recaptured a lot of the earlier IndieCast episodes, including the Further Adventures on the Fedorid one. I must say, I'm blown away. The interviews with all the artists of those comics are so interesting and entertaining. It's a pleasure listening to you talking about your passion for indie and the comic series. And the insights provided by the artists are also very interesting. I'm not that much of a comic book guy, to be honest, but since I've listened to the interviews, I did get a completely new view inside the comic book business. I've also learned a lot about making comics. Thank you. I truly have to get my hands on the Further Adventures issues and expand my comic collection beyond Star Wars. I have 2 questions for you. First, Keith has referred to the radio dramas that you've done. Where can I find them? I've searched the IndieCast page and found nothing. Can you provide me with a link? We sure can. Second, there is a debate about the order of watching the Star Wars movies among Star Wars fans. Some say one must watch them in historical order 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Some watch them in chronological order 1 through 6.
Is there an option for just watching 4, 5, and 6? Was that out loud?
It was out loud.
Sorry, I thought that was my internal monologue.
That's no problem.
Continue, please.
Ever thought about watching the indie movies in order of the actual timeline? Do you think it would work starting with Temple and going to Raiders, Crusade, and Skull? I have to say, Martin, yes, it does work. I've done that many times before. It works totally. There's a couple of little inconsistencies there, but it works. It works. It's definitely a lot of fun. You get to see where Indy learns a few things here and there along the way. I would definitely suggest doing it. Martin goes on to write, we fans need no introduction to Indy, so maybe it would be an interesting take to change the order for the first 2 movies. I'm about to try that out, I think. Again, thanks for your contributions to the franchise. You guys, Ed, Mitch, and the IndieCast are keeping the flame of Indiana Jones alive. It is because of the IndieCast that I finally did get my copies of the Young Indiana Jones Adventures, UK import, since they did not release them in Germany. and I've been enjoying them since then. My fedora off for the IndyCast. Can't wait for more Indie Marvel adventures. Listen to you guys soon. If adventure has a name, it must be the IndyCast. Or in German, wann Abenteuer einen Namen hat, das muss es der IndyCast sein. Thanks a lot, Martin, for your...
Well,
Hey, I speak a little German, too.
Glad you tackled that one, man. There's no way I was getting near that one.
Yes. Now, thanks a lot for that great message, Martin. We really appreciate it. Good evening, Fraulein. The bar is closed, Martin.
That's about it to my extent. I'm glad you handled that one. So, hey, thanks for writing in, Martin.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, Keith, we can certainly get a link up for the IndyCast radio dramas. I know you are working. Yeah, I know you're currently working on one. We've got another read along coming up. So yeah, they're out there. Check iTunes. I think they're listed as IndyCast specials. If you're looking on iTunes, I think as you go down, they'll mention them as IndyCast specials, so they're pretty easy to find there. And also, as we get closer to wrapping up with issue 34, we're going to be posting a complete Further Adventures episode guide, if you will. So you kind of know which issues we reviewed on which episode of the IndyCast, where the interviews are. We're going to get all of that out there in one shot as well. So, yeah, thanks for checking out the radio dramas and also liking Further Adventures. We appreciate all the creators coming on board and telling it. Yeah, they gave us a lot of background as well, too.
That's for sure. We discovered a whole lot of stuff, much like Indiana Jones does when he's out on an adventure.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
All right, let's head out of here with Alec, because Indy's class is over for the day. Keith, enjoyed going over this issue with you, and as we get into the home stretch, some really good episodes coming up.
I can't wait. It's getting a little depressing. We're getting so close to the end. I got to say, I'm a little sad.
Oh, all good things must come to an end. But I think this segment has lasted actually longer than the indie comic book that was out. So I'm not sure yet.
Honestly, we didn't think it was going to last this long.
That's like 2 issues and out. So it's been fun.
Exactly.
Hey, real quick, don't forget, I'm following up Mitch's IndyCast interview with Last Crusade's Alex Hyde-White over at Comic Book Central, and also Young Indies Jay Underwood. We talked about Part 1 was on the IndyCast a little while ago. Part 2 is just around the corner on Comic Book Central. They're talking Fantastic Four. You can hear it all at comicbookcentral.net or subscribe on iTunes. Really great guys. They're fun to talk to.
Without a doubt. You're doing a great job over there at Comic Book Central, Joe. Keep up the great work. If you guys haven't listened to Comic Book Central yet, do yourselves a favor, download it and listen to it. You won't be disappointed.
And we want to hear from all the listeners' thoughts on Further Adventures as we're nearing the end. 6 more issues left. Tell us your favorite issues. Talk about your favorite artists, writers that we've talked to. And if you're bringing a cover to life to snag one of those 2 sweet sets of comics, Keith, where do they send those emails? One more time.
As always, Joe, furtheradventures@gmail.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you guys. Come on, we only have 6 issues left to go. We want to hear your thoughts. Send those emails in. We can't wait to hear from you.
A mystery, mummies, madmen, and mayhem. It's shot by both sides next on Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.